the Nelson Police Board meeting, regular meeting. And we'd like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Ktunaxa, the Syilx, and the Sinixt people, and is home to the Métis and many diverse Aboriginal persons. We honor the connection to the land and rivers and respect the importance of the environment for the strength of this community. Our first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The recommendation is that the Nelson Police Board accept the consent agenda as present. There's 4 items there. Is there anything that anybody wishes to have pulled out for further discussion at this time?
I suppose I just have a question about the stuff from Surrey. Was that like just something for us to look at in terms of doing our own review?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, then that's fine. Then that's all my only question. Yeah.
Okay. And therefore, then can I have a mover of the recommendation? Moved by Jane, second by Lena. Move the second. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Number 3. You're on. Public participation never happens that fast at a council meeting. I'm just like, public participation.
Okay, well, I'm Sherry Walsh, West Community Justice. I wanted to thank you again for meeting with us at the beginning of March. Look forward to the next meeting, which is quarterly, so
yeah,
relatively soon,
Yes.
I guess. And we also wanted to reiterate that we're also looking forward to learning about the outcome of the investigation and with transparency beyond what's legally required. And that's publicly, not talking about just our group. That's it.
Okay.
Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you. And we look forward to the next meeting. And I believe, Chief, at this point, there's still nothing to report because it's not completed. And trust me, you're not the only person that probably is waiting for it to be completed
Yeah.
at this junction. So,
Including us.
yeah, that's what I mean. And that's the only person
Yeah.
I think.
Should we calendar, try to find a meeting the end of June? That would be, okay, second quarter? Yeah. Okay.
You were emailing.
Oh, I haven't checked. That's for about a week or so. Okay, I'll do that. Okay.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So business arising from previous meetings, number 4A. So that was our meeting with the West Kootenay People for Racial Justice meeting. Any questions, concerns, comments? Boy, it's a quiet group tonight.
So.
We only been at it for 6 minutes. Careful.
Yeah, it's fun again. Okay. Good. So, acceptance of the meeting minutes as circulated. Or the letter from Sherry. Thank
Do you
you.
need a motion?
As well that we've,
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
move.
thank you, that we've seen that we've received it for information. So moved and seconded, all those in favor. And that carries. Okay, moving on to 5, Chief Constable reports. BC Association of Municipal Police Chiefs.
Okay, there's really been nothing for meetings. We have a couple coming up. So not much to report. I had, as I was mentioning, my mental health and addictions committee meeting earlier today. So I have a small update on that, but it was an in-camera meeting. So should be an in-camera. There was anything too earth-shattering. On the community policing front, and it seems like a long time since we had a actual, like we've had so many high profile sort of things, special things that we've had to deal with that we haven't had a regular meeting for a bit. So on the community policing front, I don't think I've reported on the polar plunge for the Special Olympics yet. Not officially anyways.
What was that?
Turned out pretty good. I was gonna check the date for it now, but I think it was April 1st.
Yeah, we see, yeah.
Because I remember thinking it was a good day to jump into a frozen lake. But I was super impressed with the turnout we had from the department. Like I think, I haven't sat down and counted, but every time I turned around, there was somebody new from the department that came up and participated. So I would guesstimate it was about half the department showed up for that, which was an awesome turnout. Water was cold. If anybody's wondering,
Nope.
working on an excuse for next year to get out of it. Nobody else wants to gotta work on my excuse for 2 years from now.
Yeah.
Several members of the department participated in the 5-kilometer Sarah Beckett Memorial Run on this past Saturday, May the 13th. Not sure what to comment on this one exactly, but the inhalation side, I think that's been a fair bit of community policing side of that, where we're the police trying to take everybody's side into consideration and what's best for the community and what's our best role in that. Pretty complex issue and seems to be, I'm afraid it's going to turn into one of those kind of things where nobody's really happy. So we continue to work with all the stakeholders and try and support where we can. We hired 2 new police officers just last couple of weeks. So Constable Morgan Humphreys, who came to us from Victoria Police, was sworn in and started work 2 days later. The exciting event of the bomb in the parking lot.
Oh, jeez.
And well, it was supposed to be his first day, but it became his first day. And
What was it? Do we know what it was?
you know, hold back the
Okay.
investigation. Yeah. Constable Tyler Chernenkov, who's local, so that's nice. He was sworn in, but then went to the GIBC to start his recruit training. So he'll be back in October, I think, is block 2. So he goes back for his field training portion of it for 3 or 4 months, and then back to the JI in the new year to finish off the last 2 months. So it'll be, unfortunately, it'll be March before he's actually graduated and working. But we've been trying to stagger experienced officer hires with recruit hires. I think we need to look at again that succession planning thing and development in the department. So if we get some good members, 4, 5, 6 year service range, they're good field trainers for the new officers, and we've got a little bit of service ranges spread out because we're starting to get quite a few senior officers that some have started resigning, and there's the opportunity for more to resign over the next year or 2. They've got enough service and age and all that. So,
Chief.
yes.
Constable Morgan, I'm sorry, his last name, I can't remember it, but what role is he in? He's hired as constable?
Yes.
Okay.
We're just on a bit of a side note, but keep trying to take advantage of these community awareness, get to know the community. I had a tour of the catacombs, which I didn't even know there was, about 2 weeks ago. But
Catacombs?
yeah.
Where's the
Little unnerving
catacombs?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Well,
And the one that's probably now under the Capitol Theater and on Victoria.
Oh, yeah.
a little unnerving because we're totally underneath the sidewalk that goes between Vernon and Baker on Ward Street. Yeah, you could hear the people walking on it, and it's because it's such a slope. You start out where it's only like about maybe 15 feet above your head to where it's almost like 30 feet above your head at the other end, and it's just I don't know, like it's totally hollow under that sidewalk.
Didn't that used to be a creek?
I believe
Many,
so.
many years ago?
Yeah.
There's a couple of, I don't know if they're for drainage, a couple of holes in the sidewalk, but show them where everybody used to, drop their cigarette butts. Giant piles of cigarette butts. Anyways, it was interesting. And the Nelson Police Foundation, no updates.
Yeah, that's great. Anybody have any general questions for the chief?
I do.
Jane?
I know you said there was nothing to report with the BC Association of Municipal Chief of Police. Does that include any updates from Surrey?
Well,
Municipal policing situation there. I mean, we
yeah.
know what's in the news. Is there there's no more updates?
that's what I was just going to repeat because that's all I know.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
And then what was the young recruit? Because who said this back, so we've got him working currently, the one that went to
Matt
the,
Harris.
okay,
So Carling Chow graduated and is
Right.
back full-time. Matt Harris is on his block 2.
that's right, so he's here now,
Yeah,
so we might see him out and about, and then he goes back.
he goes back in September for 2 months. So yeah,
Right, and we get him back in November.
Matt, was he working dispatch before?
yeah.
Okay, awesome. Right on, look forward to seeing it back then.
And a good hire, and we got a lot of really good feedback on our last couple of recruits from the JI. I guess they said that, whatever we're doing with our hiring practices, keep it up. It's top of the last couple of months.
Great.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's nice to hear.
That's good news, for sure. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, so we'll just move receipt the verbal report. From the chief. Moved. Seconded, all those in favor, and that carries. Thank you. Moving on to item 6, deputy chief's report.
Don't have much in regards to restorative justice, but we're just kind of, stuff I do have is probably gonna be in camera. In regards to Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, we met on May 3rd, very positive. We finalized the leadership group that's gonna be part of that. Discussed some next steps. Really want to focus on being directed by the community in regards to principles and where we want to go with the EDI committee. That was kind of echoed by Lena and myself, that, we don't want to be the ones influencing that. We want the community to come back and tell us what we can do as a police department to improve our services and be better. The next meeting is June 28th, and there is an Indigenous blanket exercise on June 13th. We haven't finalized the location of that, have we? Yeah. Otherwise, that's really about it for EDI. And just on chief in regards to community events, we did attend a South Asian night at Finley's earlier this month, which was well received and was a good community event. That's it. That's my report.
Well, for the EDI committee, we have a community person who's co-chairing. That was
Oh, sorry, yes.
that's an important piece
Thank you.
because we just had
Jack.
from the police department up to now.
And who's co-chairing?
Jack, it's from Nelson Harris.
Nelson Harris, yeah.
Yeah.
Jerry.
No,
Jack.
that's a score.
That's a score.
Yeah.
They're awesome, yeah, she's
You
awesome.
know,
Oh, that's great. Just, you didn't have a report of restorative justice, but kind of just asked, like, they're still busy? That they're still,
Texas.
actions, cases, I don't know what you want to call them. Cases, it always sounds so formal, but in terms of, are there things that are coming to that group that we're keeping out of the court system that are getting resolved with appropriate?
There are. Yeah, there definitely are.
Okay,
Blaze, I can provide more details in regards to kind of what's going on with restorative justice as a whole in the in-camera.
right, okay, but they are busy and
Yeah.
the program is working.
Yes.
Okay, and just in terms of the blanket exercise, did we invite all of the members of the department? Are they all invited,
Yes.
all the officers? Okay. Those are my questions. Anybody else have any questions? So receipt of the deputy chief's reports. Move seconded, and it looks like everybody threw up their hand all at once, so that's really fast. Directors reports.
Well, we really should get together and
Yeah, well, I just have a question, like for the director's report, because Devin and I were at the training,
Right.
but we were wondering whether there are others who are going to take the training because maybe we wait till you're done.
I'm signed up to start next week.
Okay, because, then we'll have more people kind of knowing what we're talking about, right, Devin?
sure, yeah, that sounds good.
Because, there's some good ideas and we may be able to make some changes and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's, if Devin and I present, it'll just be for information and we'll forget about it, but if you also complete it, then there'll be 3 of us.
Mhm.
And then we can, talk as a group, like what ideas came up and, what pieces we want to try out or. Because there was issues like having a vice chair, the pros and cons for that. There's different ideas. Having the orientation manual updated regularly. It's things that we could do right away, and then some things that we, may have
Over time.
over time.
Robust forward
The
calendar, that sort of thing.
compensation came up, like, so we were just gonna actually check with the association, how many, because the most police boards are compensated.
Yeah, we talked about that actually today.
Oh, did you? Yeah, so just like, there were very few people who are not compensated, and, and the change may not happen for us, but I would like that conversation started. So in the future, that might be helpful.
So just to be clear, this is the training for police boards and it's been revamped and updated and everything and we're all taking it eventually. I had to bump mine in April because I was in Ontario. But I'm being rescheduled for some time.
Yeah, we all have to do it.
Well, we all have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great. I think it's a good idea.
Except for the weird exclusion of the chair, which I discussed with when I had the discussion with.
Yeah, the mayor, it's not so much the chair, but.
Yeah, the mayor.
Yeah.
Like, it makes no sense to me, is that I'm supposed to be in the chair
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
Training.
but not get the training was a bit when I talked, is it
That's weird.
pilling or pilings or what?
Filling.
Pilling?
Yeah.
Just, but when I saw them, when I finally get to meet them face to face. I just, like I said, that's just a no-go for me, but,
Yeah.
oh, well, yeah, somebody else mentioned that to me. I'm sort of thinking, somebody else mentioned it to you? Like,
Yeah.
how do I chair a group that has education that Watson advisors would not have been cheap? That would have cost them.
Yeah.
We've used Watson at the union, one day, $8,000
Wow.
to get Watson in.
Yeah.
Like, what you have to do. So this was not a cheap undertaking.
Yeah.
And I think that what it's, like, everybody has to take it, but the chair doesn't have to take it. You should be using that education. That cost the government a lot of money to hire Watson, no doubt.
I think my sense is that there's some controversy around that and some discomfort for some boards to have the same training. Like it wouldn't be an issue for us doing our training, but I think some boards.
Or maybe they don't want to have
they don't
them in the same training.
That's right.
Because people wouldn't feel free to talk.
That would be my sense. I can see that.
I guess.
That there is some, because there's already that discussion and there's
Yeah.
some people don't mind, they can see the role of the mayor's chair. Some boards don't want that at all, right? And we, when we did the training, we were just free to share
Mhm.
whatever. There was no, there's total confidence. So, and that was very helpful for us participating. And so I think that's what it is. And not that I think the chairs would benefit and they should give some kind of training, but I think the hesitance, and this is the very first, trial, they get feedback from all of us and maybe that will change.
And I took the introductory thing. There was nothing there that I thought was at all controversial, that first round.
Right, but you know what I mean, in participating though.
Right.
We have that where as the executive director, I was not allowed to do training with my staff.
Yeah.
And although I thought, hey, great, we're all equals. Well, we're not. I have more power.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And not everybody feels comfortable. So for them to benefit from the training, it was good for me not to be there.
Mhm, mhm.
So it wasn't keeping me out of the training and not getting educated or whatever. It was to make that training as effective as possible.
It almost seems like a downstream effect of the ongoing issue of whether mayors should be chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether mayors should automatically. be
Automatic.
chair.
Yeah, automatically, exactly. Like if we were to vote, yeah.
Didn't stick my hand up. Well, I guess I kind of
So
did.
don't take it personally, is what I'm saying.
No,
Jealous.
So, Lindsay, if you got a chance, if you've taken a look at the dates
Yes,
and.
well, I'm gonna look at it, trying to defer to tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think the next cohort, because I just saw something about if you haven't signed up, you're gonna be, it'll probably be the fall.
Okay.
And then, because you do have to, my thing is I never got into this next offerings of what they had, because they did offer 3 different times in there. But it was like, okay, I can go 2, I can go 3, I can never get 4,
Yeah.
and they do want you to be at all of them. And
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right, yes, it's.
That's the issue I had too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually will be missing one of these meetings because of that.
Oh,
because
really?
I'll do all 4 of them and it
Yeah.
won't be the end of the world if I'm not here.
Okay, so once you do all 4, then maybe the 3 of you could do we'll just carve out a meeting where, hopefully the agenda's a bit lighter, and then 3 of you can have the floor for the.
Yeah, we're all looking forward to a later agenda.
Yeah, no, No, I'm kidding. I was like, oh, a little light reading this morning.
Sue, did you have anything that you want to update about next, like, it's like next week? It just seemed like it was,
I know, mind boggling, isn't it? We had a meeting today with the people who are going to facilitate the World Cafe. And so we came up with some questions. Does everybody know how that works? No? So the World Cafe, they take the delegates and divide them up. In this case, we'll divide them up into 4 groups around the table, around 12 people, I think, probably. And each facilitator, of which I am one, has a question, and they go to each table in turn for about 20 minutes each and have that group discuss the question. And you need to be prepared with, probing questions and things like that to keep the conversation going, make sure everybody has a chance to talk. And then at the end, each facilitator and their note taker, whoever the note taker is who assigned to be with them, they then make a presentation to the whole conference about what the tenor of the conversation was related to that issue. I can actually tell you what the questions are. Or did I write them down? Inside scoop. Do you want the inside scoop?
Think about.
I do have it. So there's, the other 3 people actually are from the Vancouver Police Board, but we felt that wasn't really a problem because we're facilitating conversation, not directing it. Justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. How do boards represent their communities? Second, how does the board implement and monitor both governance and operational policies? One of the things that came up when we were discussing this was the fact that the Toronto Police Board actually is responsible for both operational and governance policies.
Wow.
In terms of monitoring them, making sure that they're up to date, they actually have to approve changes and so on, which I think is different than the way we've approached it. Detasking. What is the responsibility of the board in advocating for the removal of activities outside the role of policing? And the wording on these might change slightly. And then wellness. What is the board's role in ensuring internal mental wellness of sworn and civilian department staff? So those are the questions that will be.
oh, those are heady.
Oh, that's great because.
Yeah, you're going to have to actually think
Right, and we all want to hear from other boards.
Oh, yeah,
you know, what
how they're addressing all these things, yeah. And then there will be a written recap of the content afterwards. There was a great one that was published about last year's that just basically says, these are the issues and these are some of the ways in which different boards are approaching the issues. Other than that, I think I would really love to have somebody volunteer to be my note taker.
I thought Shiloh did. I will.
Will you?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. So each facilitator has to have one.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
What else do you wish for?
A ticket to Paris.
We all get a turn?
That being a concern, so you've got these other, are they expecting, that would kind of absorb all of us, mind you.
No, they each have to find their own.
They have to
note taker.
find their own, so they're
Yeah.
gonna be asking one of their board members.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah, or
potentially.
someone else who shows up on Wednesday or Thursday. This happens Friday morning between 10 and 12:30.
Okay, I guess the only thing would be is that, do we have, because you said that they were coming from the Vancouver detachment, there might not be that many. Do we have one other person maybe in the room that would? But then you don't get to participate because you're not getting
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue,
tables.
because I was at the.
I don't think
meeting.
it's an issue. We'll just grab
We
people.
were missing one for here, for sure, but Shiloh had.
Yeah, that's perfect, yeah.
Okay, just as long as we have,
And everything else seems to be coming together. Veronica is not going to be able to come. Charlotte has hired another young woman that she's worked with before who will be the organizational person on site. Veronica's mother is very ill and she can't be away. But everything will be completely laid out and the materials will be shipped to Shiloh and so we'll have everything here on site. And I think it's fine. I think everything is under control.
Thank you, Sue.
That's great.
Mhm.
That's great. It sounds like a fairly good crowd there, 59.
Yeah,
No, what?
plus probably a few hangers on. We'll probably never have the entire group all in one place at any given time. But it'll be much, as we said earlier, it'll be much harder for them to, take off to go do work because work is going to be back in Delta, Richmond or someplace.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing is that Shoes for the Soul is on Baker Street. So let's just get this clear.
They'll go shopping, that's it. Yeah.
Also
Yeah.
a possibility.
Yeah, after going to that Find Your Divine
Yeah,
and she's saying that, well, and
yeah.
I came with an empty suitcase and it's now full of shoes going home. So everybody gets time to sneak off to the shoe store. So
Yeah,
The chamber will thank you.
yes,
that's right.
Indeed.
exactly.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have a report? Okay, so chair's report. So I actually have something to say. Which I never normally do because it's just like the city stuff is that people that want to see the city information can see the city. But I did yesterday go off to Selkirk College to take, and so here's his name, Devin. So if you want to go to him, Ryan Dowd. His name is Ryan Dowd, D-O-W-D. And he's this, I guess, well-known individual who teaches homeless education training. And so we did 4 of his modules yesterday. We did homeless de-escalation, 101, 202, and 303, and they're all different. One was about the trauma and the 5 most important seconds of conflict. And so trying to look at de-escalating conflict and probably what happens when you interact with a homeless person or a person with lived trauma is what happens in the first 5 seconds can be very impactful. Then there was one of the sessions was on nonverbal tools to eliminate conflict and the fact that body language is very, very important. That's basically how we sort of gauge what's going to go on before any words are even spoken. De-escalation number 301 was preventing conflict, just trying to think of ways to just not even have it start. And the last one was on 404 was on managing your own emotions during conflict, because we all have our own sense of feelings. Before we even get into a situation where there might be conflict, we've got preconceived ideas, we've got bias, triggers, yeah, our own lived trauma, because everybody has some kind of trauma probably in their past. It was good. It started off with kind of an understanding about how your brain works and sort of what drives sort of like that fight or flight reaction that often is the trigger for confrontation. And then the whole idea of trying to de-escalate people from being in that mode and trying to bring it back down, so that battle of the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, whereas the amygdala just is the reactive thing, which reacts much faster than the prefrontal cortex, which is the reasoning part. And so this whole idea of trying to find balance. So it was really good in terms of the fact that the explanation of how your brain works, I thought was great, because anybody could have understood it by the time we were done. It wasn't particularly new to me, but it was just like, you could just see that everybody caught it, because every time we did one of these sessions, what was really good about the training is that you can take this training and just follow along. It's all videos. So we watched the video for like an hour, but because we had a social worker who was facilitating, we had a little bit of discussion after each module, which was really good. And you can tell people got it because the questions were really complex questions. They weren't just like, can you explain that again to me? So the presentation was good. And I loved it. They talked about the amygdala being the guard dog and the prefrontal cortex being the professor. And so sometimes the guard dog is towing the professor on the leash, and there's no catching up. So anyways, it was it was good, and there was a really interesting cross section of people at the meeting. There was 3 additional staff from the city of Nelson and myself. There was, which was very interesting to me, there was a large contingent from the banking service, particularly West Kootenay. So a number of the West Kootenay Credit Union, so Trail group. I mean, there's probably 5 people there from the
KSCU?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was really interesting. And then there was a number of people from our social service agencies here. And then somebody that we all know, like Paul Cowan, and one of his employees was there. Like, it was a very diverse kind of like, oh, didn't expect to see you here. Didn't expect to see you here. You know, and then a couple of people just from the public that knew it was being held. It was a Selkirk sort of course. I know that when I registered through the course stream. And today was a second day, not of this training, but there was a regional housing discussion going on that happened to follow this day. So there would probably be an overlap of a number of people, because I had this, and it was an all day. It started at 9 and it's going to 9 tonight. So it was like, okay, I'll do day 1 and day 2 I can't do because driving to Castlegar, and I would have gone there at 9 and I would have been driving home at like 1:30 to get back here. Just didn't make any sense to go and sort of leave midstream. So
Were there other people from the city of Nelson who did attend today?
yes, so today councillors Payne and Page.
Great.
Because it was more today, and you know what, and it's always like you read it and you think, okay, and it was more about housing and housing initiatives regionally. This is the Selkirk College is actually doing some research on trying to look at housing across the board. And so they were there. Chris Johnson, our new general manager from the city, was also in attendance, and I believe Kevin was trying. It was a tough day for meetings all around. Was trying to get there and might actually be going more to the evening session. So there were people from council for sure there. And then I'm sure there was a number of advocates and those from the social service sector that would have also been registered for today. I'd imagine that today's group might be even bigger than yesterday's group, because yesterday's was sort of more about education. And so I just want to speak, openly about the inhalation OPS site at Burn Street. And just to clarify that there are now things going out on social media that aren't really reflective of what has gone on to date. And it's unfortunate that I sort of believe that that's creating probably more animosity and negative conversation in the community. And so hopefully these things get straightened out. I'm still ever so hopeful that Interior Health will do what I believe is their mandate to do, and that is to have a public open meeting to address the concerns of not only the neighborhood, but the community in general. And yeah, it's a complicated situation, and it's unfortunate that it's gone in the direction that it has, because I think that having quality discourse and conversation that's civil at this point is going to be more challenging in a public setting. And hopefully that it gets, hopefully we get a public meeting.
I don't know if you heard the CBC interview on last Friday morning, daybreak, and they were speaking to the Interior Health representation, whoever that was, I forget the name of it.
Land the best.
Okay, and he said that the timeline for opening. Is that far off?
He said that it would be weeks to months
Well, because
before.
Chris tried to clarify. He's like, are we talking weeks? Are we talking days? Are we talking months? And then this Landon said likely weeks. So I thought that was a bit bold to say if there's such conversations still apparently needing to happen. So I just wanted to get your sense on the time
He was basically saying that that's how long it would take to resolve the rest of the issues.
and open the site.
Yeah,
Well, one of the things is the city has, healthcare is a provincial issue. So you just got to start with the basics, and that is that the city doesn't control whether or not a health program exists or not. And so the mandate that has gone out to all the health authorities province-wide is that that having an OPS site, so just for everybody knows what OPS stands for, like an overdose prevention site. So that's a site where you can inject, or in this case, inhale. And I do believe that my understanding is, and it's, I have to get some more clarification, is that there is the potential that they might be able to inject there as well. But right now, but OPS. So they have the mandate to deliver that service. That's now considered a basic health service, like as it was pointed out to me, dialysis treatment or diabetic management that needs to be put in place. And they have an order. They have the health emergency order M488, which says that where it's determined that there's a need, an OPS can be set. Yeah, we have two already. This will be the third one that we have in this.
Yeah, you said that earlier. There's one at Anchors.
Yes, and there's one, and they do safe injection at the hub as well.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
How many are there in Trail? Just out of curiosity?
0
Okay,
Yeah.
In Casper.
and 0.
Yeah.
Casper. Anybody want to throw another town out? Grand Forks, Preston, 0.
So where,
Cranbrook supposedly has one, but the people in Cranbrook unfortunately are trying very hard to shut it down.
so where it's been determined there is a need, part of that sentence is kind of curious then. There's no need anywhere else?
They come to Nelson.
They don't all, because there's a lot of trail
Yeah.
activity going on.
So, and that is my question. It's not to say that my question just always back to Interior Health is, okay, we have two. The question I have is there a need for 3 when no other community has any? It's not that I'm saying I'm for or against. I just need some clarity around, you have this mandate, and because you have the mandate, you could in fact set one up somewhere else.
Yeah.
And nobody can really potentially stop you. So in terms of the timeline, so here's where the confusion kind of sets in a little bit, is that some of the things that the misinformation being posted, unfortunately by REDEN, who is the program deliverer, is misinformation. So IHA has, unfortunately, and they've admitted in meetings that they have been a bad neighbor at 818 Vernon Street. They haven't, the residents there have been for a long time asking about fencing or more lighting or controlling the trespass, right? The trespass is a big issue for the neighborhood because there was constantly trespassing going on there. And now somehow it's that a fence has to get put up and it's stopping this. No, the fence is a discussion on the timeline way back. And IHA, like the neighbors have been trying to engage with no engagement, but now that there's a program and there's more push, now it's sort of like, oh, now we're going to deal with some of those issues. Well, maybe you should have engaged the community earlier or whatever, or addressed their issues that they had about the fact that you were managing your property inappropriate. So the concerns initially of the neighborhood were about poor property management. Just like any of us would have if there was constant havoc next door, we'd be asking for a solution. And so that's that was part of the asks of the community back in January, in a meeting that I facilitated with Interior Health and some community members. We weren't talking about inhalation site. We were talking about how do we make what's going on the corner better. So fence, security, lighting. I've been assured by Interior Health that all of those issues are going to be addressed. The fact that they decided after announcing on Tuesday morning, on Wednesday afternoon, that they were going to start it on Friday. And I asked the question of where was the public consultation? And they told me that the neighbors would be getting a letter the next day. And then they decided that, oh, I guess giving the letter 40, I don't know what they decided, but then they phoned me on Wednesday night to say, we're stopping. And I'm like, okay. And we're stopping and we're looking at the fencing. We're having some issues trying to find security and whatever.
And
And
it's just
once
a
it's,
sign up saying no trespassing. I'm a neighbor. I haven't received anything. I don't, and my neighbor and I who walk, we just said, oh, I wonder why the sign is going up.
I
yeah,
actually have a
they put
question
up
about
more,
that. too.
they put up some more no trespassing
Like,
signs.
how's that gonna help?
So anyways, that's sort of like where it is. It's really unfortunate because I think the ability to have good quality dialogue gets harmed when information is distributed that isn't like, that's kind of misinformation out of a little bit of anger and frustration. So to answer your question about if all of that, if that's what IHA is saying, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and that all gets done, then I imagine that they have the right. I mean, they keep having this discussion with the city. Well, you find like, I don't know that it's my responsibility as the city to find you another spot. I'm not the health authority. I'm not the province. I don't deliver these programs. And we did look, I mean, that was the initial conversation I had with them. And we did look, and I had our facilities manager look at whether or not this was something that we could run it at City Hall. I mean, they want Friday and Saturday nights. Was there some way that we could accommodate the parking lot behind City Hall? Like we looked at a number of things and there's just nothing that works with the criteria of it has to be safe for staff, it has to be warm for staff, it has to have plumbing for staff, it has to have ability to view the inhalation site, because of course staff are not in the inhalation site, of course. So it was trying to find the building that accommodated that. Safe injection, I can sit here, I can help you,
Yeah.
I can explain to you how to even use a needle well, but I'm not doing that when you're out with a crack pipe or whatever. I don't understand how you deliver these drugs. I mean, I'm ignorant about how you use these drugs in inhalation, but I cannot be sitting with you while you're doing that. Right. So there has to be an ability to observe. Because otherwise, how am I going to get to know if you're in trouble?
So just to bring it back to the police department, what has your involvement been in all of this?
Well, I've been to a couple of meetings. The first official one, I would say that. Sorry, the first official one we had was when we had representation from Anchors, Redone, and IH came to the office about 2 weeks ago. I can't remember the exact date. That was really our first sort of meeting about it, consultation. And then a couple days after that, we had the meeting down at Brittany Anderson, the MLA's office, where there was some more representation from IH as well as Anchors and Nelson Cares.
That was
And
the
then-
round of introductions
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah. Okay, that's a pretty apt sum of what happened. I thought there was going to be a little more discussion time, came to the meeting, but the time they kind of got around for you, kind of what's your role here, and few thoughts by specific people. Community members, I didn't think got really to, and that was kind of what I thought the meeting was about, and board as well, was for them to come and voice their concerns and get some clarification or reassurance or some commitment to deal with those things, and they didn't really get to voice them, sort of. And Sarah helped sort of clean up the questions and stuff and send them to them. So
And who is the community that show up? Is it just businesses?
It's
there's
the
more
residents, businesses that are in that part of town. So at that meeting that we had with MLA Anderson, there's this group called the Unseen Victims Community Group. And so they were there most in part to take notes, because I think they thought that there was going to be, which was kind of the thought, I had the same thought, that there'd be more discussion. And so people were there to take notes so that no one person had to take notes. And then Tom Thompson was also there from the Chamber of Commerce, because of course business is interested, because there is this overflow of people that are bivouacked in the front entrances of Civic Center, the movie theater, businesses downtown. So there is the overflow of what goes on in town. So there was interest from many facets of town, I would say. There was impact. They have impact statements from seniors who use the senior center. So it's hard to say, they could be living anywhere. There's a senior center. Yeah.
Exactly. I actually lived there, but I've not heard anything. So it's interesting how.
About the
Yeah.
that's happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
Just in public.
I have opinions too, is that.
Yeah, so that wasn't really a public meeting. That was a meeting because of these pre-existing issues around the property management
I see.
there. Not about the programs,
Right.
about the property management. And the fact is that there had been this rumor going around that there was going to be some kind of program expansion. Maybe this inhalation tent, which nobody knows what it looks like or how it really operates.
Right.
But that, and it was like, hey, like there's problems now. And then could we fix some problems before we add more programs?
Yeah.
Which may or may not cause problems. I mean, who knows? But could we do X first before we get to Y?
Can we manage our things before we add more things to things we
Yeah.
aren't managing?
And that was a clear
Yeah,
ask of the business and public community.
totally. I do have a question. I keep hearing, this is actually great. Forget everything I just said. I keep hearing that that Interior Health has put up no trespassing signs. This is the rumor. I don't know if it's true or not. And they put up no trespassing signs because they don't want the police going in onto that property. This is the rumor that is floating around, that the no trespassing signs are there to keep the police out. That they don't want the policing the folks hanging out on the property. Have you heard anything to that effect? Can you speak to that at all?
I can speak to it in camera.
Okay.
Well, it's interesting because when I saw that,
Yeah.
no trespassing, I just knew the story about Janice being assaulted or whatever. So I
Videotape.
thought to
Accused of
myself, oh,
trespass.
that's what this is. They're keeping Janice out of the building. So you can't say, oh, I
Okay.
was assaulted, yeah.
So I'll speak just in general terms about, if you read the Trespass Act,
Mhm.
and the chief can go into more details on camera, but because anybody, so it's not in-camera information to talk about the Trespass Act.
Yeah.
Anybody can read it. And the Trespass Act is basically, does state that that you need to respond, trespassing is if I, as the property owner, phone, say, the police, because I need assistance on my personal property, then they, of course, can come. The fact that the neighbor looks over and thinks there's somebody trespassing in my yard, they're not the owners of the property. So if I've got a no trespass sign in my yard,
Mhm.
although the neighbor might think they're doing me a favor by phoning, they're not the property owner. So they can't make the invitation to trespass on my property.
Okay.
But also, it's also a liability thing, isn't it? Like if you have a no trespassing and somebody gets in there and gets hurt,
Well, then
but
that's
the owner is
IH,
not,
that would be IHA's issue though.
yeah, but that liability, like they are not liable if you are trespassing. Like I know that on
Yeah.
my property that we had, because Murray was doing some
Yeah.
logging, right? And there could be people there
Yeah.
getting hurt. And so we never used to put up those signs, but we did when he was logging. And that was a liability issue. If somebody got hurt, then we'd say, well, we put up the signs, they shouldn't have been trespassing. So
So
it's
the
a
trespassing,
protection,
it's
yeah.
interesting to read the nuances of the Trespass Act in terms of, obviously, if you look out the window and you see somebody on my property when I'm not there, waving a gun at somebody else he's with, yes, you have a right to call the police, and the police have a right to then come onto my private property to deal with a criminal activity. You're not blocked from coming to deal with a criminal activity. Is my understanding. Did I get that wrong, chief?
That's right. If we see the criminal activity happening, we have the right to
You get
want
it,
to
yeah.
enforce the law. Like, they don't have the right to refuse us property. But for simple trespassing, yes, it has to be an actual property representative that has the right to tell you that that person is actually trespassing and they want them removed.
Okay,
Yeah, not the neighbor.
yeah.
That's the subtlety of the.
Okay.
So,
I appreciate
Who
that.
puts those signs up? Interior Health?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
They did. And without information, we're all making up our own stories about what signs are about.
Yeah, that's why, I'm still encouraging them to have a public meeting. You know what, sometimes, you need to have the difficult conversation, and sometimes it doesn't go the way you want it. But I think at this point, short of a public meeting being held by Interior Health, I think that the general vitriol is going to continue, and that saddens me as the mayor.
Yeah, it's being really mismanaged.
Yeah.
Really.
So anyways, there you go.
Yeah.
Now you have
Thank you.
my comments. There was no new business or late items. And so then we are now on to 10, and that is that the next regular meeting be held on June 14th, 2023 at 4:30 PM. Is there a motion to that effect? Okay, moved and carried. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Sherry, for coming.
I'll check the
Coming.
mail.
And look forward to seeing you perhaps, June 14th or
13. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.